Guys, welcome back to the channel. Yes, that is a 2024 ZH2 SE. So that's the special edition. I just want to make a quick video on here, talk about my first impressions, kind of like a general list of first impressions and things have already gone and changed. I'm probably going to do a top 3 things I hate and top 3 things I love about this bike. That'll be the next video for sure. All right, let's get started. Got the 450 and 300 hanging out. All right, so let's talk about this bike. First things first, the exhaust. It is super heavy. It weighs like 20-something pounds, and you can barely hear this thing. So brand new, I mean, it's super quiet. First thing I did is I took that exhaust off. I actually didn't have this tip in yet, so I ran it without, and it seemed to work fine. Sounded pretty good. Once I added the tip on here, it's got a little more acoustics for sure. What have I done so far? So we did frame sliders. We did a steering dampener. So this bike should not come from the factory without a steering dampener. When you get on this bike in sport mode, the traction control is limiting the tire up and down as you're accelerating. So it's kind of bobbing on the ground on the concrete. Sounds cool and everything, but kind of dangerous. You feel like you're going to have tank slap all the time. The steering from the factory just seems a little unstable to me without the dampener. Especially, you know, you get into speeds like 60, 70 miles per hour. Just seems a little unstable. What else did I go ahead and do? So I didn't like the mirrors, so we swapped those to the bar end ones. That's a personal thing. Next thing I want to talk about is the weight of this bike. So just pushing it around the garage, definitely on the heavier side. My MT10 was a little easier to get up on the stand, a little easier to maneuver around if you're kind of like backing into a spot or whatever to hang, you know, to park your bike. You definitely can feel the weight difference. The weight difference, when you're moving it around the garage, yes, you can feel it. When you're on the street, when you're in the corners, you don't really feel it that much. This bike is still pretty flickable, I would say. You can still weave around. I mean, it's pretty flickable. It feels light in the corners, like I said. It's just you notice the weight when it's like dead weight when you're moving it around. Oh, these buttons are nice. I mean, they're plastic, but the quality of them just does not seem like the Yamaha. So that's something I noticed. I definitely like this display. I like this display better than the Yamaha MT10 that I had. Definitely needed to add this steering dampener. So I went ahead and got this Hyper Pro. This is the progressive steering dampener, so it's their top model. The more shake you get, the more it dampens. This thing is awesome. Should have came, these bikes should have came with a steering dampener from the factory. Let's see, what else did I do? I did an intake. One of the things I actually really appreciate about this bike is the air filter is way easier to change than most other sports bikes that I've seen or had. You just pop this panel off right here. Filter's right in there. You grab it and you swap it. This is the stock filter right here. So I went ahead and installed the Sprint filter, which is supposed to add a lot more airflow, and it definitely helps on the noise. You can hear the supercharger more. Braking, super awesome. Way better brakes. This is the best braking bike I've ever ridden, so it is. The Brembos are amazing up front. I don't know, that's a pretty good summary of the first impressions. One thing about it, I would say the wheeling on this bike. So the traction control almost works too good. So in sport mode, it will allow you to wheelie, but it kind of just bobs the wheel off the front. And when you pair that with the no steering stabilizer, initially it's pretty weird. It's just kind of doesn't feel very stable with like that. I haven't turned off traction control yet. The bike has 700-800 miles, so haven't quite got there yet, and I was originally just waiting for the steering dampener to come in to do that. So I'll probably start trying to wheelie it a little bit more, turn off the traction control. The traction control is very limited for a good reason, right? It's a 200 horsepower bike. It just doesn't allow you to wheelie very much, even in sport mode, so which is the lowest traction control setting. So those are the first impressions on the bike. Yeah, I went ahead and added the Puig windscreen as well. First impressions. So yes, it has a fuel gauge, which works. You get to half tank and you fill it up and it takes like 1.6 gallons. It's a 5-gallon tank. So the other day I ran it all the way down to 1 bar and it took like 3 gallons. It should have 2 more gallons left. So fuel gauge is a little off. It's not a big deal, but just one of the things I'd point out, the suspension. So from the MT10 that I had to this is a huge improvement over suspension. This thing takes bumps extremely well. Any road impurities, it's just super smooth. I really appreciate the electronic suspension on this thing. You can see it's got the wires going in and out of it. We got the wires right here. And then obviously it has the electronic shock in the back, as you can see that. So suspension, big bonus. Overall, I really like the bike. You do notice, compared to the MT10, this thing, it's a little more high strung. So with the supercharger, you kind of get up in the higher RPMs, like 6,000 and on, it just pulls super hard. I'd say the MT was a little more mid-range, like low-end power compared to this. This doesn't seem like it has low-end power initially, but it's got a lot of mid-range power once you get in it, and then obviously the top-end power is crazy. So all the tech seems to work pretty good. Cruise control works good, easy to use. Overall, I really like it. I mean, you got to take care of the exhaust right away. You got to take care of the steering dampener right away. The brakes are amazing from the factory. The suspension is amazing from the factory. You don't need to touch that at all. Fuel gauge kind of lies to you. Not a big deal. Bike is fast. It gets up and goes. It's quick. Now, people talk about temperature issues or overheating issues with this bike. I haven't had any issues. Sitting in traffic, bike stays pretty cool. I was riding it the other day, 100 degrees, and no issues with this sitting in traffic. Yes, it's getting hot, 200, 205, but as soon as the light turns and you start going, problem solved, just kind of cool down pretty quick. The supercharger, people complain about the supercharger temperature getting hot, because you can see that on the dash. You can see, oh, what's the engine temperature, and then you can see the supercharger temperature or the boost temperature. Right now I'm in 6th gear on the freeway, 4th, 5th gear, top, high RPMs. It gets warm, but I wouldn't say it's anywhere close to overheating. So no issues with the overheating that people have talked about or mentioned before. Did the first oil change, did the break-in period, obviously. Bike runs great. One last thing I did forget to mention, I did do the tail tidy, because from the factory again, you have this huge thing and it sticks way out. It's so ugly. We went ahead and added the NRC tail tidy. This is the built-in LED blinker too. So you can kind of see how that is pretty clean. This maintains the Z. This is now my blinker, and then that's your license plate holder. This is the tail tidy that comes on there. Yep. So obviously just a huge improvement. This thing's huge and ugly. I think that's about it. So, and we're gonna get some more footage riding this bad boy, because it is awesome. Got my Insta360 set up now, so we're good to go on that. Thanks for watching. Overall, awesome bike. Super blessed to have it. This thing's sweet. Definitely have to make your own adjustments with the steering dampener, the exhaust, get the exhaust that you want. Gotta get used to the weight, but it's an awesome bike. I was contemplating this, the ZH2, or the Streetfighter V4. The other bike that was in the running was the KTM 1390. After doing a lot of research, actually watching YouTube videos, I decided, I didn't even go ride it. I sat on it, but I decided 1390 is not for me. I don't like a lot of vibrations, and those bikes are twins. So inline four, a lot less vibration. The noise, in my opinion, of an inline four bike, leader bike versus just a twin is a lot better. Twins, Harleys, not exactly my sound preference. So I like that high pitched, just F1 sounding type of engine. So yeah, Street Fighter was in the mix. The 1390 was in the mix. Overall, I mean, after I did a lot of research, this thing, the power it makes, the tunability of this thing, the technology that it has, like the Street Fighter does not have cruise control. It does not have a fuel gauge. Not a big deal. I'd stop every 100 miles anyway, but just kind of the creature comfort things. Cruise control is a big one. I use that all the time. So there was that. The 1390, I believe, when you buy the 1390 from KTM, you have to go back or you have to pay extra for a tech package, which unlocks the quick shifter, which unlocks the cruise control. So like you're paying 23K for a bike already. This already has it. This sounds better in my opinion. So first impressions, really love this thing. I'm gonna keep riding it, gonna keep updating the reviews, and we'll see how it goes. Until next time.